Last week we started our analysis of Black Lagoon's killer maid, Roberta. If you haven't seen that video, there's a card on screen now. It's the first part of this two-part special and explains her character pre-Blood Trail. Today, we'll be moving past the threshold of the OVA and bearing witness to the fruits of decades of history, years of pain, and a single life-changing event. While our blind idealist at heart may have saved Garcia once, now she struggles to save him from the very darkness she herself plunges into head first. Is it a shift in personality, an abandonment of ideals, or the morbid crawl of insanity that changes her so? Maybe a little bit of those, and then some. She hates the world she finds herself in, but returns to it anyway. Roberta is a complicated tale, and in one important way, the most unique in Black Lagoon. She does something that no one else in Roanapur ever manages, and for a cost that none of them could ever handle. We know that in Season 1, Roberta became the sword of the Lovelace family, one who could utilize the darkness of the world to keep them pure and ensure their lives. She views her life as mostly wasted, but of great utility for Garcia and Diego. While Garcia's kidnapping shifted her back to the role of Bloodhound, it never succeeded in totally destroying her life, serving only to push the boundaries while leaving it mostly intact. Now, their sword was no longer silent, but the family managed to live through the cartel's misdeeds. When they fail to live through the USA's, however, is where things shift in a way that can never be reversed. Season 1 was brutal, but it was reversible. Diego's death at the hands of the CIA, however, is something they can never return from. She can't give up her life to save his as she tried to do before. And she knows all too well death is irreversible, the meager stuff of change the underbelly of the world thrives off of. As she says,
his death was nothing to them. It was just a matter of routine.
Obviously, she knows this firsthand, and that knowledge is what propels her forward to the city of the dead once more. Death is procedural for her. She shot down the gangs of Roanapur with a monotone apology and a look of pure apathy. It feels rehearsed and dry because it is. So when her world falls apart and she has no means to protect Garcia from the darkness of the world that blasted its way into his heart, she defaults to the only thing she's ever known: violence, killing, changing the world through murder. She describes the Lovelaces like this.
The Master and the young Master are good people who deserve all the blessings of heaven above.
To her, they are the kind and pure who showed her nothing but warmth for years, and yet the world keeps coming back to punish them for it. Garcia's kidnapping and the happenstance murder of Diego. While the world turns with its reckless abandon for human life, the Lovelaces get kicked to the side and beaten down as part of the process. While already reinforced in her head, this proves the harsh reality of the world. And once more, seeing her world which can no longer be fixed, she abandons her ideals. The family creed she used to quote, a justification of her actions, is ditched, described as meaningless words. Later on, she reiterates this sentiment, saying on FARC's attempted reacquisition of her,
I would never join your damned revolution. Why? Because you and those foxes serve the same master. Your so-called principles, they're just illusions, and I'll never be fooled by them again.
Where she once clung fully to ideals for her trail of blood, now she has none. Maybe. Exacerbating her internal struggles is the creeping insanity enveloping her mind. While she initially says her actions aren't revenge, by the end of Blood Trail, she and Garcia are arguing about the revenge that she has exacted. She speaks to characters in her mind we've never seen, about things we don't know, as she shovels down pills post-prayer, all things we never saw her do before. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Her motivations and mindset are fittingly scattered as she attempts to pick up the pieces of her life. Of course she's all over the place because, while she may have only known murder, she never knew it without a cause. And so, while she tries to swear off all invisible allegiances, she can never really succeed. At first, she says,
I won't dignify this by calling it revenge. This is about dogs tearing at each other.
However, she never quite sticks to this concept of ideallessness. In fact, the lack of a humane motivation could in itself be called an ideal, some belief in the rules of nature taking hold once again, as the strongest kill the weakest. She knows these gang leaders and drug runners are weak people at heart, driven by corruption and selfishness. In a world like that, these people would eventually be overcome. But that couldn't be, because nature has no direction based in morality. If the world is simply dogs tearing at each other, then Garcia would fade away forever, lost to a world he couldn't keep up with. He isn't a killer, just a boy on the verge of this heartless world. He could never commit such an act, never. He would die like his father, the means to someone else's end. So she turns to God, praying madly to search for some justification of her sins or some forgiveness once they are committed. What if this is all part of God's plan, obstacles placed before her and tests to overcome? Or maybe she's a pox on the sinners, an angel of death sent to purge the world which harms those she finds heavenly. If Diego and Garcia deserve all the blessings of heaven and everything happens according to some heavenly reason, then maybe she is the start of those blessings, one sent to ensure their purity. But then that means Diego died for this to happen. While she may not care about herself, Garcia is crushed and destroyed in a way opposite to the logic she tries to ascribe to God. If he had a plan for their prosperity, why take one from the other so early? Why act out his will through the very sinners she would need to punish? God cannot be her answer. Her own mind tells her so through her insanity. Her mind is inescapably tied to the Lovelace heir apparent. While she may try to break from Garcia as a reason, she never can. And without him, nothing in the world makes sense. At least, not in any hopeful way. Hope, in contrast to all of her actions, is one of the pillars of Roberta. At least through her vicious actions in FARC, the world would be changed for the better. At least by becoming the Bloodhound once more, she can save Garcia. At least the Lovelaces will make it into heaven no matter what. There's always some at least to her character, some small aspect of good that comes from trudging through the shit. And that is something that can't be shaken. The woman who committed acts of terror for a better future wouldn't give up on her goals just like that. She gives her life for causes, and the cause of Garcia is nowhere near finished. It's true that she can never take that darkness and loss from his heart. The mark left by the death of his father is there forever, bringing him closer to that she sought to protect him from. But she can kill everyone who made it happen. She can purge the world of those scoundrels and sinners and make it so no one would dare wrong him again. And if they try to, she'll just have to kill them all. If you can't get rid of the darkness in him, then just take it all out of the world. Stimulants, God, nature, whatever she needs to get the task done can be done in his name. There's at least some logic to it. To kill what must be killed, if even for a moment it solves the issue. This neat retying of her mentality comes in this one line.
There is only one person that I serve, one person who can leash me, and that's Garcia Fernando Lovelace.
Of course, one key part of this is that he's across the world, never knowing what's being done in his name, the massacre for purity. He can't control what others do for him of their own will, and that's something that never changed in her mindset, always as their hidden blade. But then, he's right there, right in front of her, witnessing this, the goriest moment of Black Lagoon for good reason. And he crumbles, introduced more to the evil of the world than ever before, from the hands of one of the last people he has left to love. From the person who swore to protect him no matter what. Here, she destroys him, implicating him in the gruesome nature of the damned. And she naturally loses it when she sees him there in a near comatose state, the object of her secretive desires, who now knew everything she hid. And that destroys everything she's done over Blood Trail. Crippled by the very nature of the world she wanted to destroy in his name, why had she done all of this? What was the point now that he was ruined? To take this at face value is to crumble what little of a world Roberta had rebuilt for herself. This reality and her wishes cannot coexist. So she finds a way out, claiming the Garcia before her eyes to be nothing more than an illusion, another ghost haunting her. But why would Garcia haunt her? This is something they explore in the same scene through Hironobu Sato, the voice in Roberta's head. Since it's coming from her own mind, we can only take this word as the truth that she has buried deep down. This shows a fault in her logic and a weakness to her character. While she may only know violence because that's what she was taught, to say there is nothing else ignores the years she spent in the kindness of the Lovelace household. She never got better at her work as a maid and seemingly ignored the lessons Diego taught as well. She basked in their affection, but never figured out why. To honor the memory of those who are clear, she does nothing but stain the water with blood. How could this be the wishes of the men she loved so dearly? She wasn't strong enough to stay by Garcia's side and help him heal when he needed it the most. She didn't have the courage to change and become what they had always been for her. And she knows it. She tells it to herself right here.
If you had lived the rest of your life in the company of that child, then maybe those wounds would have healed eventually, but you are the one who threw all that away.
Her path, while it may have been covered in blood, while it may have required destruction and dominance and physical strength and personal struggle, was the weak choice. The static choice to stay who she always was, as most in Black Lagoon do. The choice that disregarded the Lovelaces the most and tarnished their kindness. Imagine not only throwing your life away, but also the life of the only one you love and the years you spent with them and the lives you took in their name. She can't countenance this fact in an instant, the crumbling of her entire world. So she doesn't. She screams at the truth in her mind, blaming it not just for Diego's death, but this moment as well.
You took my master from me, and now you've done this to the young master!
It makes no sense, but that's the point. She's reasoning it away with insanity and moving on. Not without scratches, though. When she mentions Garcia past this point, it's connected to violence.
He's still back at the manor, waiting for me to bring him the heads of the foxes. As soon as the hunt is over, I'll prepare a nice cup of tea for you.
She never openly admits to herself that Garcia has been tainted, but her words do. She starts to think he'll be okay with the violence, that the gore of her revenge will satisfy him. She knows what she saw, and to maintain course, it needs to make some adjustments. Deep down, the truth still creeps out from her psyche, as it always has. And this weakness we went over, the option she chose to rationalize by any means and do only what she knew, is what Garcia plays at to finally bring her back. This scene is an odd one for sure, and at times it seems to not make much sense. Nothing really happens or changes, at least for real, yet they get to have their somewhat happily ever after, something distinctly not Black Lagoon. But after going over it further, I think this is one of the strongest scenes of the anime, and one that provides an intricate look into Roberta's mind and just how well Garcia understands her. The moments before this final scene are also some of the most brutal of an already bloody anime. It's quite the contrast to who Roberta was on her first trip. She was cold and procedural, killing with the intent to save. Now she loosely maybe has some of the same intent, but it's clear she's enjoying this hunt. The way she leads them on further into the jungle to kill them with her traps and blasting them through the chest with the Lovelace's original rifle, an act which required hours of setup. This is her weakness at its peak, where killing had become a game to her. This isn't ideological advancement through death, this is dogs tearing at each other. But there's still a hint of Roberta left. That antique weapon, the one which embodies the Lovelace creed, is her weapon of choice. An illogical one, as we said and as we see, it took much more work than anything else would. It puts her at much a disadvantage. It's focused on quite a bit and for good reason. The adherence to that weapon shows the hope left in her. The inability to ever truly discard what she was fighting for. She's almost gone, but not quite. After she slaughters most of the American squad, loses a few fingers and a lot of blood, Garcia and Roberta meet in the jungle with Claxton and Fabiola in tow. Broken and beaten, she can only admit what she feels, hazy, lost, and unsure of reality. And Garcia lays the groundwork of destroying her mentality, saying,
"Who is this for? All this time, I never cared about revenge."
He knows what she thinks. He was privy to it in Roanapur. This is a direct attack on how she was justifying her hunt from the very object of that justification. Naturally, not able to discard her mindset in an instant, she reinforces herself. She had to kill them. They took everything. She has to kill them for Garcia. And what the boy does next is the nail in the Bloodhound's coffin. He shoots Claxton. This isn't just taking her final act away from her. This is taking everything away from her. Garcia, openly and before her very eyes, chose to enter the darkness she tried to save him from. Her life was devoted to the opposite of that very act. Everything of her being was against that, and it shows. She can't believe that this is him.
Impossible! You wouldn't! You would never kill someone!
Because if he did this, then we reach the same conclusion she ignored before. What was the point of it all? What did she live for all those years? With this shot, Garcia forces advancement onto her with the method that she herself used. The past is dead. He shot it dead before her eyes. She can't go back. There is no world where when she returns,
You'll smile at me, and everything will go back to how it was.
because Garcia is no longer the ideal of purity. Remember how she couldn't take the darkness out of him, so she chose to take it out of the world? This is the young master's version. If you can't change her, then change who she believes in. And there's another side to this that's quite brilliant. We've said many times that what Roberta knows is death, her tool of advancement. So how do you make her advance? With her own tool. Garcia frames this forceful shift in mentality in the only terms she can understand anymore. Nothing makes sense but death. So he kills her past. He shoots her. But not Roberta. He shoots the Bloodhound. Who she was is dead. The woman of the past weeks and months and years is gone forever, like every life she touched. What's left now is the future and it alone as they move forward. Naturally, Garcia doesn't actually kill anyone, instead using blanks to fake her out. But in her weakened state, she has no capacity to not listen to him. She may not be following the picture of proud purity she was before, but she can still follow Garcia Lovelace. That never changed. So she listens, and she does. At the cost of her body and temporarily her mind, Roberta is assisted in doing what no one else in Black Lagoon ever manages: escaping. Leaving the city of the dead where nothing ever changes. Leaving a life led down a trail of blood. In that way, it's fitting that this scene plays out outside of the city and that they never return. It's just like she said, the Lovelaces simply weren't of this world. And we end on confirmation as Roberta greets the family of Hironobu Sato, forever weakened. The final aspect of Roberta's character is cost. She doesn't escape intact, losing a leg, an arm, an eye, and 2 fingers. She'll be unable to live on her own for the rest of her life. In justifying her heinous actions by always following someone else, she's fated to rely on someone else for the rest of her life. Where before she could make the choice, now it's just reality. And this is Roberta, the tale of a woman who did unspeakable things in the name of ideals in the future. One who rejected reality for as long as she could and broke down when the illusion faded. One who sinned in the name of God and killed in the name of life. A walking contradiction of death and hope, branded forever by the scars of her past. I think there's some discussion to be had on Garcia as well. The anime parallels him to Rock in many ways, and it's for good reason. Garcia starts much like Rock, but ends in an entirely different place. 2 men in the twilight, but walking in opposite directions. One who succeeds, and one who fails. But that's a discussion to have for another day. So anyway, we'll wrap this one up quickly here. So I'll have links in the description below to my Twitter if you want to keep up with things there, to my Discord if you want to reach me more directly. We've been chatting there. It's been a pretty good time. And to my Patreon as well if you want to support me directly, because obviously I love putting these together. These videos, especially on Roberta, were very fun to put together, and I'm hoping that you have enjoyed them as much as I did. But it is a lot to, sit down and really go over this stuff so much and put it all together. So if you want to support me there directly, I'd greatly appreciate it. But obviously, no one has to do anything. I'm grateful that everyone's just watching. Go ahead and like it if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and leave me a comment letting me know what you thought on the video of Roberta, if I missed something, if there's something you want to add, because that's the best part of this, is making it a group community discussion and really growing something together. That's what I've always loved about this and what I'll always say every time. But anyway, I think that just about covers everything, so I'll go ahead, let you get on with your day, and just say thank you for watching, and I hope I'll see you again soon.